Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Playeasy Warmup, the podcast where we dive into the stories, people, and places driving the sporting event and tourism industry forward. I'm your host, Kerri Shields. This past June, I had the incredible opportunity to spend some time in Frisco, Texas, or as they've rightfully earned the title, Sports City, USA. Even though it pains me as an Eagles fan, it was one of the coolest experiences I've had in my professional career. And just after spending a few days there, you quickly understand why. Frisco has been incredibly intentional about building a destination around sports. It's home to some of the biggest names in the industry, including the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, FC Dallas, and now the PGA of America, which chose Frisco as the home of its headquarters. I can't say enough good things about what is being built there. One of the highlights of my trip, and honestly, a highlight of my professional career, was getting to record this episode on site at the home of the PGA of America. I have to say, I was completely blown away by this campus. We were able to take a tour after this interview was recorded. So, as passionate as I was about how incredible that campus was, I was even more blown away just after the tour and seeing how much was there. From 2 championship golf courses and a 76,000 square foot putting green to a lit short course, the PGA district, which has a ton of restaurants and bars and shops, and also the Omni PGA Frisco Resort. It is literally a golf lover's dream. But beyond how impressive the campus itself is, what stood out to me the most were the people behind it. I had the opportunity to sit down with Jason Mengel, the PGA Championship Director, who oversees all 4 of the PGA of America's Spectator Championships, including the Ryder Cup, KPMG Women's PGA Championship, the Senior PGA Championship, and the PGA Championship. Jason is incredibly impressive. I learned so much from getting to know him and just having this conversation. And after spending some time with him and his team, you get a real sense of the thought, the passion, and the work that goes into bringing these massive championships to life, but building something special in Frisco and far beyond it. And that work is about to be on an even bigger stage. In May of 2027, the PGA Championship will come to PGA Frisco, marking the return of a men's major to Texas for the first time in more than 60 years. In this conversation, we talked about Jason's journey with the PGA, what really goes on behind the scenes to bring some of the biggest events in golf to life, and everything that goes into preparing a destination for an event of this magnitude. We also get into what makes a great host destination, the partnership between the PGA, Visit Frisco, and the local community, and the impact that these championships can have long after the final round. Jason also gives a behind-the-scenes look at what we can expect when the PGA Championship comes to Frisco, from thousands of volunteers and hundreds of thousands of spectators to some of the logistical challenges that most of us never think about when we're watching an event at this scale. I just want to say a huge thank you to Jason, his entire team at the PGA, everyone in the studio, and everyone we had the chance to connect with while we were out there, especially the Visit Frisco team, for welcoming me and my teammate, Alexa, who was there with me. It was one of the highlights of just my professional career, and we were blown away, not just by the campus and everything that they have going on and what's to come, but just how welcoming the community was in bringing us there. And so I left Frisco just incredibly impressed by not only what has already been built, but by the people behind it and their vision of what's still to come. I'm so grateful I had the opportunity to tell a very small part of this story, and I can't wait to see Frisco on the national stage when the PGA Championship arrives next May. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Let's get into it. Welcome to Sports City, USA, Frisco, Texas. Ever wonder how a small town in North Texas became the epicenter of American sports? From the Dallas Cowboys to the PGA of America, Frisco is where champions train, fans gather, and unforgettable events come to life. In our new docuseries, Where Greatness Grows, hear the real story from the people who built it. City leaders, sports execs, and visionaries who turned Frisco into a powerhouse for tournaments and meetings. With world-class venues, championship fields, and top-tier hotels all in one place, Frisco is more than ready to host your next big event. Watch the story at sportscityusa.com.
You have so many of the professional leagues touching this community, whether it's Major League Soccer or the NFL or the PGA.
Failure was just not an option. It's been really cool to build the business that we have here in Frisco.
It's one of those places where you want to be if you're into sports.
People are pointing here, and they're saying, I need to go there.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Playeasy Warmup podcast. Jason, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, and officially welcome to the home of the PGA of America here in Frisco.
Thank you. I have so enjoyed my time here. I've been here for about 24 hours and got a tour this morning of the campus, nice. And it is stunning. I know I had big expectations coming in, but it's far and beyond blew my expectations.
Yeah, from my standpoint, it's amazingly fulfilling and rewarding and motivating to come into a place like this and call it your office daily.
I don't know how you actually do work during the day, walking around here, just seeing everything that you have to do here. But when I told people I was going to be interviewing you, the first question they asked was either what was your handicap or how good are you at golf?
Well, there's a reason I'm on this side of the operation, not playing in the championships. I do love to play, and I played what I would call mediocre golf at some of the nicest places in the country. And unfortunately, for someone who's passionate about golf like I am, I don't get to play as much as you may think, even though most cases we're steps away from some of the finest facilities like we are here in the country. Just the hours that it takes to be in this position running our events is significant, and it takes time away from family. And so thankfully, the entire family likes to play golf. So our family time will often be on the golf course.
That's amazing. And I come from a big basketball family. And so I have to admit, I'm very new to golf. So I would say I'm now getting more consistent, but just understanding the importance of consistency has been huge and hard to get over the frustration of it just not clicking.
Well, we might have 31,000 PGA members we can put you in contact with. But the great thing about PGA Frisco is regardless if you're the best players in the world playing in our championships here, if you're just picking up a club for the first time, there's something for everyone. And so the centerpiece of the campus here, you may have toured it earlier, is what we call the dance floor. And so the dance floor is a 76,000 square foot putting green that you can just come to PGA Frisco with a ball and a putter and you can play golf. Much like if you went in your driveway and shot hoops playing pig or something, it's very similar to that. And that's kind of the entry point for the game for many people.
And I would love to start there because this headquarters, I know I said I was expecting big, but this is beyond blown my expectations. It's really more like a sports destination. So could you go in depth on everything that you have at this headquarters?
So if you talk about it in terms of like a retail establishment with anchor tenants, and so we're in one of those right now, the home of the PGA of America. We also have an anchor tenant in our partners at the Omni PGA Frisco Resort. 500 plus rooms, fabulous facility, spa, tons of dining outlets. Another anchor tenant here on campus is the headquarters of our Northern Texas PGA section. And then, of course, all centered around the golf aspect, the campus, including the dance floor. We also have a 10-hole lighted short course, the swing, and then our 2 championship golf courses. We also have a retail and entertainment district called the PGA District, which includes dining establishments and shops. But whether it's in the Ice House or the Lounge by Topgolf, there is these club in hand availabilities. Even if the weather wasn't cooperating with you that day, you can still hit golf balls out of the bays at the Ice House or book a simulator in the Lounge by Topgolf and have that golf experience. So a number of ways to get introduced to the game here.
That's amazing. And one thing that really stood out as we were on our tour was there was a center for creating golf clubs.
Yes.
So could you talk about that?
Yeah. So another anchor tenant on campus is the PGA Coaching Center, powered by T-Mobile, which is kind of our retail outlet if you're looking for either club fittings or lessons. And the team over there is some of the best in the business. And so I encourage you, if you're in the area and looking to improve your game a little bit, you go see Tim and our friends over at the Coaching Center.
Awesome. And I think let's take a step back because you've had a really unique journey within the golf and event space. And so could you start, what first sparked your interest in the golf world and what has led you to becoming a championship director?
Yeah, so if you go way back, I'm from outside Detroit, and I knew there was probably something more to the big four sports teams besides, who played center field for the Tigers. I really got introduced to kind of the event side of sports during my time at Western Michigan University. Had a couple internships, one with the RCA Championships, which was a tennis event at the time in Indianapolis. And then what really sparked my interest in the path towards golf was an internship I did with the PGA Tour's Buick Open. Loved it so much. I went back and as an intern did a postgraduate internship and then stayed there for 5 years, working in a variety of sales and marketing role. At the time, Tiger Woods was winning every other year and was a Buick brand ambassador. And so saw that the people ahead of me on the org chart were in a pretty good position and had a chance to come over to the PGA of America, who in 2006 was staffing up ahead of the 2008 PGA, and the rest is history from there.
And I've heard from many people in preparing for this interview that you are a very humble guy. And so you are the first person in PGA of America history to oversee all 4 Spectator Championships?
I am, but I think that's just a symbol of me being around so long. That inevitably was going to happen, but it's a great honor to be referred to as humble, but also to be the first of something in an organization that's run championships for over 100 years.
That's incredible. And those 4 championships, let me see if I can get those right. The Ryder Cup.
Yes.
The KPMG Women's
PGA Championship.
PGA Senior and PGA.
Senior PGA and the PGA Championship.
Amazing. So. Okay. And what has been your favorite so far?
Well, it's always the one I'm working on now. Yeah. And so we're just inside a year now to the 2027 PGA Championship. And you talk about now that we're here in our new home in Frisco and having the opportunity through this position, not just to put down roots for my family. Typically someone in my role would move to a new site every 2 to 4 years, but to also do it at our new home. And so to have a chance to play a small role, write a small part in the PGA of America's major championship story here at our new home is amazing. And I'm very blessed and thankful to have that opportunity.
And it'll be the first time in over 60 years that you're bringing the PGA back to North Texas?
Yeah, so a major return, 1963 at Dallas Athletic Club. Jack Nicklaus won the first of his 5 PGAs. Also marks the 100-year anniversary of the 1927 PGA, which is held just south side of Dallas at Cedar Crest. And Walter Hagen won the last of his 5. And so you think about those 2 men winning those 2 events here in Dallas, have their name on the Wanamaker Trophy more than any other player in history. A lot of historical significance riding on next year's championship.
Definitely. And I know you're expecting over 200,000 spectators coming in, over $100 million in economic impact.
Yes.
I heard you have a ton of private planes that you're waiting on coming in, and just a lot of other logistical items that you are preparing for. Yeah. How do you even start to begin that operational planning for an event at that scale?
Well, it helps to have a good team. So we have a great team in place. We have the support of a host committee with our general chair, Blake Rolling. We have their department heads here at headquarters, but also, the community is so supportive. Here we are 1 year out. We set an all-time PGA Championship registrant record for ticket interest. We're well ahead of where any PGA Championship has been from corporate standpoint at 1 year out. So to have all that kind of coming together and the historical significance from what we just talked about, it's going to be exciting, but also, as the time goes by, the clock starts to move a little faster, and we're not that far away from, next February-ish, starting to build out the over 500,000 square feet of temporary infrastructure that will go into this championship.
That is crazy to think about.
It's a lot, yeah.
And I mentioned this too, but I am from the Philadelphia area, so a few minutes away from Aronimink, where a few weeks ago the PGA of America was held. Yeah. So what do you learn from an event that takes place in a totally different climate, area, suburb, and implement that within 2027?
Yeah, every host site, host community has their wonderful opportunities that they bring to the table, but also some challenges. And so Philadelphia didn't have the infrastructure in the community, that part of Philadelphia. Certainly the larger community had the infrastructure, but the Newtown Square specifically didn't have the infrastructure that we do here in Frisco. So what that looks like is, more here. We've got the tollway right away. We have some new roads that have been built right around the complex. And so that'll just mean easier access to and from. And then as far as like inside the ropes, again, every golf course is different. We will have an attendance cap that we have. And, it's not as easy as visiting like a baseball or basketball stadium where if you have 50,000 people there and 50,000 seats, 50,001 will be standing. But we do back into an attendance number based on a variety of factors. So.
And from a visitor and fan perspective, watching on TV, being there in person, it's a very glamorous event that's being held. Behind the scenes, I'm sure it's not as glamorous.
It's not, as you can imagine.
Could you give some insight and maybe things that people don't know or might not see that you are handling behind the scenes?
Yeah, I think, what if I just turned on the TV and was watching, Sunday at Aronimink and Aaron Rai coming down the stretch and thousands of spectators taking it in, I probably would not originally think that build had started in February in the snow. And it takes a lot of work and hours and dedicated effort to take it from what looks like a construction site to what you saw on Sunday in Philadelphia on TV. And so talking about not so glamorous behind the scenes, it does involve, people like our operations assistants who are outside for months on end, managing inventory as it comes in, putting up windscreen, and really they're playing the frontline role in that transition to a stadium environment.
And something else that has been really eye-opening for me, just being in the sports tourism space, is the impact and the need for volunteers and how important they are for making a successful event. So what are you guys doing in the planning phase right now to get those volunteers out for 2027?
Yeah, so it kind of starts with our host committee. We talked about Blake being the general chair. We have an executive committee of about 12 members. We have an org chart, just like any other major sporting event, with about 70 committee chairs on it, managing committees that are inside or outside the ropes. In total, we'll need about 3,100 volunteers at a PGA Championship. And we use the word volunteer because it's a historical golf terminology, but they're actually paying a fee to participate in this event. And in many cases, taking off, PTO time away from their career. But these stories and experiences that come out of that are what keeps them coming back every year in and year out. And very similar to what we talked about on corporate and tickets, we're ahead of pace historically with volunteers as well. And so I have no doubt that we'll fill up our spots here in short order.
And you mentioned the importance of the partnership, the local organizing committee. How important has that been in just the preparation for next year?
Yeah, you think about kind of the entire outside the ropes aspect of a championship. And so that includes finding parking spots for 18,000 cars. Not every golf course, not many golf courses have that right on site. And so the community is going to play a big role in that. If we talk about okay, so you go to park, you're going to have to get in a shuttle bus. That's going to need police and traffic support in the community. Our goal is to be as least disruptive as possible to normal daily life of the community, and that involves support at the highest levels of the city, but also we are meeting for years in advance of the championship with police leadership, fire department leadership. We permit the event, so we're working closely with the city on that aspect of the champ, and that takes years in advance, and it requires a heavy lift from the host city.
That is, and I think that's something that we're here today because of Visit Frisco and the partnership that we have with Visit Frisco and the incredible partnerships they have within the community. Yeah. And so what has that partnership meant for PGA of America in Frisco?
Yeah, and we all have the same goal. We all want this to be the best event that we've ever hosted. And certainly the support of the city and Visit Frisco in getting the word out, connecting the dots between us as the new kid on the block here and some of the establishment to the Cowboys and Rough Riders and FC Dallas from that side of things to all come together with that same goal in mind. And so the connectivity that we have experienced, regardless of the department of the city, they've been so warm and welcoming. And again, it goes back to us all having the same goal.
That's awesome. And I mean, you've been doing this for years now. And so I'm sure the experience from the fan and spectator perspective has changed a lot over the course of these championships. And even being able to attend a few weeks ago, it is a full day event. And it is now something that people of all ages are coming to attend, whether they're new fans to the game or have been fans for forever. And so how, from your perspective, has that fan experience changed? Yeah,
I mean, you think about, obviously, mobile device. So in 2011, we were the first major championship in the States to allow mobile devices as part of the championship. And so for a while, it was kind of looked at as we were hyper-focused on it not interrupting play, and we had a mobile device policy enforcement squad who was out in green vests walking inside the ropes, and we're taking phones. But now it's kind of additive to the experience, and the ability with partners like T-Mobile to kind of lean into that. And now you have all the information you want in your fingertips, whether you're on site or not. Maybe you're sitting at home in Maine or something and not going to travel in for the event, and you have the same access to real-time coverage and data that they would on site.
That's awesome. And something that is very prevalent, even just from walking around today, is PGA's impact and mission driven for the community. And I think there were multiple places within this campus that you could see just giving back and making the sport more accessible.
Yep.
Could you speak to, has that always been the mission? Is that something that is really important to the organization?
Yeah. So when we had our foundation created a number of years ago called PGA Reach, that really was an intentional effort to do a number of things to improve lives through golf by enhancing military component of as a veteran comes back from overseas war or, training mission or something like that, they have a chance to use golf as a rehabilitative tool. That's called PGA Hope. And so to take a step back, the mission of the PGA of America is simple and twofold. It's to serve our members, but also to grow the game. And how we do that oftentimes is by the junior ticket policy we have at our championships, but also by PGA Junior League Golf. Which was created with the intent of being golf's version of Little League. And so via one of the channels of PGA Reach is Junior League Golf scholarships. And then the third component is intentionally going out to what we call underserved communities. And that looks like exposing people who usually wouldn't be exposed to all the career pathways related to golf, and that's PGA Works. And so that comes to life a lot of times during our championships when the spotlight is the brightest, and offers up an invitation to come out and get direct exposure during the biggest weeks of the game to all the career pathways that exist in golf, whether it's inside the ropes or not.
That's awesome. And as a former female athlete, I still like to think of myself as an athlete. Just the hype, I don't like to say hype because I think that women's sports has been something that people are really starting to get eyes on, but something that I have always been very passionate about. So could you speak to just the growth of women in golf?
Yeah. So kind of coming off of us hosting the KPMG Women's PGA Championship last year really was an opportunity to continue to put the spotlight on the growth that we've seen on the women's side of the game. And so it's the fastest growing sector of participation in the sport. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with things like we just were hosting Women's Golf Day here last week, and all of those programs that kind of, again, break down the barriers to access the sport. People tend to think about golf as you have to go play an 18-hole round at a country club. Well, no, you don't. You could come out and use the dance floor here, and that would be playing golf. And just all these pathways that have been created to just welcome more people into the game, and women are one of the constituencies, if you will, that have benefited from that.
I can speak firsthand on that as someone who's pretty new to golf. Having it be more accessible and something that, I don't know, you're not as intimidated going out and playing on, as you say, an 18-hole course, but just feeling like, I could embarrass myself and still go out and have fun and get better is awesome.
And with your girlfriends, and it's a very social sport, outdoor game in most cases, so it's a wonderful environment to build those relationships in.
Definitely. And so a lot of our listeners are destinations, so host cities across the country that thrive and whose job is to not only bring in events to their city, but enhance the visitor experience. What, from your perspective, really separates a good host city from a great host city?
Yeah, I think what we're finding is it's more competitive than ever because host communities are seeing the direct, tangible benefit of having a championship, in this case, in their community. And we talked about some of the impact earlier, whether it's, the economic impact, the millions of dollars in tax revenue that are generated through championship hospitality, ticket sales, and merchandise sales. But also it's a large, significant amount of hours, commercial, if you will, for that host site. So the PGA Championship in this instance is one of the most televised events in all of sports, featuring over 250 hours of live coverage that goes out around the world through our broadcast partners, again, in the PGA Championships case of CBS, ESPN, and ESPN+. And what that is an international commercial, HD commercial, for the host community. And so in this case, Frisco is seriously going to benefit by that because it will hopefully draw more visitors to want to come in and experience the area when we're not hosting championships.
I've heard you say that it is a live HD commercial for a host city, just having those hours. And so even seeing it firsthand from the community I grew up in Delaware County, and seeing
which looked great on TV, by the way.
Stunning. I can't believe I'm from there. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, it just portrayed it in a way that makes people want to visit and come and learn more about. And so what is something that you think that host cities can learn from hosting an event and having that kind of coverage?
Yeah, I think it starts with kind of just looking at the scale and scope of the event. And so Frisco is a great example of that. They immediately plugged us in with all the planning teams in the city who we would need to pull off an event of this size. And whether that's, we talked about the police and fire department, Visit Frisco playing a role, also the Frisco EDC and opening up some corporate doors for us. The city council and the school district has played a big role in this championship. So really it's bringing together all constituents across the city. And some of those you might not think of, you might not think about the school district top of mind, but they all play an important role in helping the community pull off a successful PGA championship.
That's awesome. And so to finish us out, I'm going to do some lightning round questions. Okay. Just to start us off, what is the best championship city you've worked in that surprised you?
Well, Frisco, of course.
Yeah, other than Frisco.
I'd heard things, but we'd never hosted an event here before. So our first event here was the 2023 Senior PGA Championship, which was hosted. So the resort opened May 2nd of 2023, and our first championship was Memorial Day weekend that year.
Wow.
So in that short amount of time, we were still trying to figure out how the lights, we're going to turn the lights on here. But we had obviously been planning for it months in advance of that. So to have kind of the Senior PGA go as well as it did in a first-time community that's hosted this event, a first-time host site, was kind of eye-opening about what the potential could be here.
And I'm sure it just showed the importance of partnership with a group like Visit Frisco.
To tie into what we just talked about.
Yes, definitely. So favorite event that you've been a part of outside, let's say outside of Frisco or anything around here?
It'll be tough to top the Ryder Cup.
Okay.
So I was fortunate enough to be in the director chair of the 2020 Ryder Cup, the 43rd Ryder Cup, because it ended up being contested in 2021. And just having to go through that with the team on site and our partners at the Kohler Company through the pandemic, and then to kind of see that play out the way it did for the Kohler Company and the PGA of America, and the U.S. team winning in the record fashion that they did, and that we were able to have full crowds on site. We didn't have as many European visitors as a typical Ryder Cup because the travel ban was still in place. But just to have 3 sunny days of Ryder Cup crowds and the U.S. team perform the way they did at the end of that pandemic
That's amazing.
Was very rewarding.
Yeah, I'll have to say that was one of the coolest parts of the tour this morning, was seeing all of the bags from the Ryder Cup.
Yes.
In the lobby walking in.
Well, hopefully we'll win the cup back.
Yes, that's yes. So the most chaotic event that you've been a part of?
Probably the same. We were about, let's just say, a month away from needing to start construction in spring of 2020. And then it got postponed. And because of specific laws in Wisconsin regarding postponed events, in a relatively short amount of time, we had to go back out and resell all the tickets and re-recruit all the volunteers and resell all the corporate hospitality. And our team did that, and they actually generated more revenue than we had on the front end. So that was a chaotic 12 months after the postponement was announced, but it was very rewarding then to have what we just talked about, the U.S. team win the way they did.
I was going to say that sounds, I'm happy that it ended up being
chaotic
rewarding.
and rewarding at the same time.
How about one amenity or infrastructure piece that separates a good host from a great host?
Well, I think what we have here at PGA Frisco, we would normally build a PGA district in a temporary environment. We have brick and mortar facilities here. We've partnered with facilities that may have a hotel as part of their host site, but it might be miles down the road. We have that on site here. And the way we're using the resort this time around, in where we have hospitality and, we're able to, for the sponsored events, use the building is our media center. We won't be able to do that in 27, but just to have this permanent infrastructure here has really opened up the possibilities for us.
I have to say, I'm fortunate enough to travel to a lot of cities for site visits and being able to see the host cities in person. And you can't really imagine what this is like until I've been able to be here. Yeah. And so I can second that it has been incredible. And I'm very excited to see in 2027. And so if you weren't in golf, what sports event do you think you would work in?
Well, I did intern in tennis, so that's very similar to golf in that a lot of times you're building temporary infrastructure and it's a week-long or 2-week-long event. So that may be a backup plan, but I always dreamed growing up about playing for the Red Wings, and so maybe hockey would be a good backup as well.
Okay, I like it. You have the Dallas Stars here too, so good team. Most underrated part of a championship?
Most underrated part, from a fan experience perspective, coming on in the practice rounds. And so it's often said that, players are a little more interactive in the practice rounds. Crowds are a little more spread out, not so much condensed around the bigger groups. So if you're a golf fanatic, you can come out and you can get up close to the best players in the game as they prepare during a week of a major championship. And I think from that standpoint, it's interesting to come out earlier in the week and kind of see how they prepare for one of the biggest weeks of their year.
That's awesome. And I was told to ask this from my coworkers who are big golf fans. What is the best hole at Fields Ranch?
Well,
let's do from a spectator's perspective and from a player's perspective.
I'd say from a playability standpoint, and the most picturesque hole on property is probably the 13th hole. So it's a par 3 uphill, surrounded by trees. We had a couple players hit a hole-in-one on there during the Senior PGA, so it can be got, but usually it's one of the more challenging holes on property. And then to go the other way, there's a short par 3, the 17th. And where it's situated, steps away from the 16th green, steps away from the 18th tee. It's kind of a great opportunity to see it entirely, a soup to nuts of a hole, if you will, but also how we're going to approach that from an infrastructure standpoint. It's going to look much different if you walk out there during the middle of the championship week than if you went out there today. It's going to be surrounded down golfer's left side with double-decker structures. Gallery will be allowed in front. And so you think about that atmosphere late on a Sunday afternoon, and it'll be quite exciting as players come down the stretch to try to win the Wanamaker Trophy.
That's awesome. And I know this has all been a pitch for Frisco and why people should come to Frisco. And I think I didn't even mention this, you were part of Frisco's Sports City USA documentary, which was one of my favorite marketing pieces in terms of storytelling for a destination. Could you pitch Frisco and why people should bring their event to Frisco, Texas?
Yeah. So first of all, it's kind of what we've covered so far. It's a plug and play type environment. But also, even though you may look at it, today's competitive landscape, we might be competing for the same dollars that the Cowboys and the Rough Riders and the Stars who are based here in Frisco, and FC Dallas are, but that's not the case. We're all very collaborative and very supportive of one another. And so if you're looking to come into a welcoming, collaborative, forward-thinking environment, you couldn't do better than bring your event or your home, like the PGA of America has here to Frisco.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great way to end this. And Jason, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Of course. And I'm excited to follow in 2027. Hopefully I will be able to be here. But
we'll see you in a few months.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Until next time.